Hey friends, welcome back to the Maple Leaf Barn. I'm Libby, and today we are going to be talking all about ranunculus. If you're new to the channel, welcome, and if you're returning, thanks for hanging out with us on our flower farm here in Southwest Ohio. We're gonna go out to the front beds and just check on our ranunculus that have been under row cover for a few months. And then we're also going to share a little bit about some of our ranunculus that we have started in the grow room and how we have hardened them off and then planted them out into our rows. And we covered those with row cover a few weeks ago. So we're just gonna check on how they're doing. We're gonna see if anything has eaten them, and that way we can then start hardening off the rest of the ranunculus that are growing in the basement and get them ready to be planted out very soon. All right, let's get to it. In all honesty, this is my first time coming out to the beds since we've had the first major wave of those winter storms, so I have no idea what to expect. And I'm excited if we just have a couple little corms that are peeping through in this couple sections that I have been testing out. And so let's just take this apart and see what it looks like. Okay, let me pull this all apart and get it ready for you so I can show you. Stick with me through this video to find a hidden question and leave me a comment below with your answer. I'm interested to see how many of you guys will stick around to find out. This row of self-sowing ranunculus were corms I forgot to dig up and bring into the garage for storage over the summer. Let's take a look at the different plants and see how they're doing. So there are some plants that look really healthy and other plants that look like they've wilted a lot, but there is new growth sprouting from the base, which is a good sign that they will bounce back. There are a lot of clover weeds in this bed, so I will have to go get those all cleaned up before planting anything else in this row. Overall, these corms that have withstood the winter under frost cloth and greenhouse plastic in the low tunnels have done pretty well. Let's take a look at this little patch that I'm testing out with some straw for insulation. I wanted to know if it makes an impact positively or negatively. I think that these plants definitely look comfortable, and there really isn't too much growing as far as weeds underneath all the straw, so I think that might be a good sign. Again, these were all corms that I left in the soil all summer, and they sprouted on their own in the fall. Yarrow is a perennial in our area, so once you sow the seeds, that plant will become a perennial, which is really exciting. Moving on to this section of the bed, I have another growing test happening. In this section, I didn't do anything to these corms other than just place them into the soil. I planted them in October, and it looks like there's a gap with the soil in the end, so some of these corms haven't done very well and they drowned. But there are a few corms that have sprouted and are producing really healthy, full plants. I'm interested in seeing how hardy these winter sown plants are that we sowed in October, and I'm curious if they will produce stronger blooms or if they'll be pretty much similar to the ones that we sow in the spring. We have had an issue with a vole, but I put down some hot water brewed with red pepper flakes and sprayed the beds, and then I tamped down all of the burrows that the vole had made. It appears that it has repelled the voles, or some other factor was involved that I wasn't aware of. Most animals are allergic to ranunculus, but I'm not sure about voles, so it might be that the vole ate some of the leaves and then was no more. I have some yarrow that I overwintered here in the middle of this ranunculus row, and it's looking really healthy, which is awesome. Let's talk about hardening off. If you have a frost cloth and a low tunnel available, you can go ahead and start hardening off at this stage. I usually do this over a week-long period before planting out, taking the trays out during the day and bringing them back inside in the garage overnight. The temperatures right now have been an average high of 55 and the lows of 29 degrees. These had been hardening off over the last week, and this day was a gorgeous day to do a little planting. Here's an example of what those seedlings look like up close. You just gently pull the clump apart to get one corm plant, and it's relatively easy. You just have to be careful and just gently maneuver it. We're going to be planting them into the first row, which I weeded the other day and prepared, although I debated keeping the tulip sprouts that had been popping up from last year, and I've decided to pull them out. This was our tulip row in 2023, but we have since moved that row to be in the middle. This bed is also the beginning of a perennialized yarrow bed, so in the coming years, it'll probably just be yarrow. And hopefully by then we have a high tunnel and we can plant all of our ranunculus in a high tunnel. I just need to pull these surprise tulips that will be probably not even developing very much, and I just need to pull those out, and so that the ranunculus don't have anything to compete with under the soil. This also helps to work the soil a little bit before planting them. I plant ranunculus with a 4 to 6 inch spacing. I did closer to 6 to 8 spacing in 2023, and I just felt like it was too spread out. I'd rather have them closer together for weed suppression. The soil is so loose that I can just easily make a little hole with my hand and place the seedlings inside. When you go to pull the corms apart, you might be worried because they look like the roots are really bound together, but have no fear. Just gently wiggle them, and the roots belonging to the corm you grabbed will loosen up, and the more corms you remove, the easier it gets to remove them. These seedlings have developed really healthy roots, and they will love being planted into the beds to expand their root system. If the root system is really long, I have a little trick where I sort of put the plant in the center and then twist the plant clockwise until all the roots are all in the soil. Then all you have to do is just gently surround the plant with the soil and move on. These plants are very resilient, so as long as those roots are not exposed to the air, they will do fine. Not all corms are created equal. Some of them are a little bit smaller or larger, and that's due to their growth. So the larger corms have been corms for much longer, so they've gotten a little bit plumper, and they do make larger plants. So naturally, the plants are going to vary in size. I like to pull out a few seedlings at a time and create more of an assembly line for the planting, so it's a little faster and a little more efficient. I'm usually planting with a baby in the stroller or inside napping with a baby monitor with me and dad inside. Big brother is also outside in most cases with the dogs, being a little wild, as all little boys should be. So I try to find 15 to 30 minutes here and there to get out and plant. I found that being a mom of littles while running a small business farm forces me to get creative with my timing. I also try just to get one tray done and call it quits if people are getting cranky. Squeezing in one tray at a time definitely makes for a more manageable planting experience than if I had to plant 3 full 50-foot beds all at once. It creates more dirty laundry, but happier kiddos. I have invested in some really high quality work clothes and boots, which helps me make cleanup a little bit more manageable, and I'll link those below in case you're interested. It's definitely not a flattering view planting on your knees in the dirt, but nobody actually goes out to the garden wearing pretty clothes unless you're taking a photo shoot. The reality of farming and gardening is that it's a very messy and dirty work. It's back-breaking, knee-throbbing, neck-cricking work, which is why I actually have started to see a chiropractor regularly, and it's making big strides. I'm hoping to see a big difference in my joint and back overall during this growing season. If you have any aches and pains after a long day of planting, I totally feel you. I'm done planting for the day, and these will be covered when the temperatures go below 40 degrees just to keep them safe and sound, and we will skip ahead to the next part. Well, it wouldn't be Valentine's week if it didn't snow here in Ohio. Here's the secret question. In the aerial shot of the snow-covered farm, what image do you see is created by the cluster of evergreen trees? I'm glad the ranunculus are nice and cozy under their frost cloth and greenhouse plastic, but it's also not completely foolproof, so it's time to go check on them and see how they're doing with the temperatures and to see if that vole has destroyed any more. Ranunculus are hardy down to 28 degrees after maturely developing their root system in the soil, but they do not like frost. So it's best just to keep them covered when the temperatures are in the 30s or below. Let's talk about our setup here. It's a very simple setup with a low tunnel metal frame that's about every 8 to 10 feet with a layer of frost cloth over the plants and then a layer of greenhouse plastic over that is held down by some sandbags or these black tarp spikes. It's fairly easy to do, but it just takes time to open them up for the day and then close them up at night. It's a labor of love, but so worth it for the peace of mind and then just to have beautiful blooms. All of these supplies can be purchased at Johnny Seeds or a number of other places, or you can just DIY it from the Home Depot. I'm happy to see the seedlings we planted look great. They haven't had any issues with the cold temperatures and no animals have bothered them. They look really healthy, and this gives me a lot of excitement to plant out the other trays that are currently hardening off. Hopefully they will start to give us blooms within the next month. It'd be amazing if we could have some for Easter, which is at the end of March. Now let's go cover this back up because it's going to be frosty in the mornings with temperatures into the upper 20s, and then we'll just have to keep coming back out during the day and opening it up and doing this cycle until we no longer have really cold temperatures. It's a lot of work to do, and at the same time it doesn't take more than 10 minutes, so it's very manageable, and I hope you guys really enjoy growing ranunculus, and I would love to talk to you in the comments to see how you're doing.